recovery. It's going to be facilitated today by our coordinator, Sarah Francis. And Sarah is the coordinator of our Food System Coalition, as well as the Food Rescue and Glean Coordinator at SLO Food Bank. She moved to SLO at the end of May after spending almost 2 years farming organic veggies in Hawaii. Sarah is passionate about connecting people with locally grown, nutritious food and practicing regenerative agriculture in the field. She loves being able to work across different sectors within the food system, all with the same goal of bettering our community and the environment. Oh, and I'm going to start recording. I hope that's okay with everybody. And I'm going to pass it over to Sarah.
Well, thanks for the introduction, Shannon. So I'm gonna actually shut this door real quick. There we go. Got a barking dog this morning. Let me share my screen. And before I introduce our panelists, I just wanted to give a brief overview of, some national food waste stats and why we're talking about it today. And just some updates from the last time that we had this topic, which is our May of 2021 meeting. So 30 to 40% of food is wasted annually in the US. To put it in other terms, it's 119 billion pounds, $408 billion, or 130 billion meals. So that's a lot of food that's being wasted. And not to mention like the land and water and labor that goes into it. And so this food waste happens at every phase of food production and distribution. 39% is residential and 61% is commercial food waste. So, our small actions can make a difference, like using the green waste bin or being mindful of actually using the produce that you buy. And not necessarily following those use by dates that are on the labels. The biggest reduction of food waste must start from the top of the chain by looking at the way stores and vendors and the average consumers buy and produce food, which is why California State Bill 1383 should drastically reduce our state's part in these numbers. And I'm sure some of our panelists will get more into it, so I won't go too detailed in it. But since we last met, SB 1383 has now gone into effect for Tier 1 generators. And so SB 1383 is a statewide effort to reduce emissions of short-lived climate pollutants. So the goal is to reduce organic waste disposal 75% by 2025 and rescuing for consumption at least 20% of currently disposed edible food by 2025. So the Tier 1 generators had to comply as of January 1st, 2022. So we've had 1 full year of these big generators rescuing food. So we should see some numbers once this year's data is released. And then Tier 2 generators, which are like large restaurants, events, hotels, that kind of thing, they should be prepping to comply by January 1st. So this is exciting food recovery efforts going on in our state. And then just to jump gears real quick and talk about the use by dates. We haven't had any updates with these use by dates since our last meeting. Currently, baby formula is still the only food required to have a date label. The other date labels don't reflect product safety. It's only really the quality. The safety really depends on how it's stored. So this label uncertainty makes up for 20% of that residential food waste. So it just takes a little educating ourselves and putting in that effort to make a change. And with that, I'll stop sharing my screen and introduce our first panelist, Lauren Thomas. She is the Director of Food Services for San Miguel Joint Union School District. She's a registered dietitian, trained chef, and school nutrition specialist. She loves talking about healthy eating, fruits and veggies, farm to school programs, and of course, school meals. She believes every child should have the opportunity to receive a delicious and nutritious breakfast and lunch at school. And in her free time, you can find her backpacking, hiking, playing volleyball, or with a good book and coffee. So Lauren, I'll let you take it away.
Hey everyone, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, you see it? Perfect. Okay, like Sarah said, my name is Lauren Thomas and I am the food service director for San Miguel Joint Union School District. I'm a registered dietitian and a school nutrition specialist. San Miguel School District is at the very tippy top north of Paso in North County in San Luis Obispo. We have an enrollment of about 700 students. We're an entirely community eligibility provision school district, and one of our largest sites, Lillian Larson Elementary School, has about a free and reduced rate of 93%. So regardless of COVID, we were serving meals at no cost to students. And then with the introduction of universal meals now, regardless, we were doing that before. So I was asked to present just to talk a little bit about how schools play a role in our food system and how we are mitigating food waste specifically. So schools and the food system, how are we connected? So I showed a little picture here with all of the different pieces of our food system, everywhere from food production to marketing, purchasing, preparation, and of course, waste recovery. So schools play a large role in our food system. We serve a lot of federally funded programs, including all the acronyms below. So the National School Lunch Program, the School Breakfast Program, Child and Adult Food Care Program, Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program, and Special Milk Program. My school district serves a National School Lunch Program, snack, and breakfast, and we are working on implementing a separate program later this year. So schools are part of the institutional food service operation. They're probably some of the largest restaurants that you would think of. They're probably serving the most amount of food in the shortest amount of time in any given area. In 2019, over 4.9 billion lunches were served across the country, and we know that that number has risen since COVID. We also know that California is the leader of universal meals, so all students, regardless of income, have the opportunity to have a complimentary breakfast and lunch at school, and other states are following. Schools are also, and school food service especially, is in charge of nutrition education programming and school wellness policies, and as well as all of the procurement and processing of food. So utilizing USDA commodity items. So think about big agriculture everywhere from Tyson chicken to General Mills across this country. A lot of that is in schools. Milk is another one. And then, of course, I just like to mention, because it's my passion, and we see Claire on the call too, but our farm to school programming. So schools have this really unique ability to connect children with the farmers in our area into the cafeteria and in the classroom. So we can really have this connection here. And I think that the more students learn about their food system, what their role is, where these foods came from, who's growing it, they can have a really big appreciation for those things. And then they're more likely to share that with their families. And I think overall you end up preventing waste. Okay. I thought that because we're talking about food waste, I think it's especially important just to talk about briefly the stigma of school meals. This happened, I feel like, more so before COVID, but the words that I often heard, and I still hear, oh, you're a food service director? Like, oh, you just serve prepackaged like crap to kids. I'm like, no, that's not what I do. School meals are thought of as less than, not nutrition, and often a waste. They think, oh, kids don't like that, that's gross. While these pictures, I think, are some of the food that we serve. You can see some are my plates of lunches and others are the students. We have pozole with Taco Works chips, a meatball sub. We have house-made muffins and local kiwi, and then a pulled pork sandwich and salad and beans. And these are just some of the things that we serve on a regular basis. But I think that COVID really shined a light on school meals and highlighted the importance of them for many, many families across the country who rely on these meals every day to feed their children. Universal Meals in California has helped reduce the stigma by ensuring that all students have access to meals at school, regardless of income. And then we know for research has shown over and over again that school meals are nutritious. They show that students who participate in school meals consume more whole grains, milk, fruits, and vegetables during meal times and have better overall attendance rate and test scores. And then all of our meals fit certain nutritional guidelines. We also know with whole grains specifically, which is some of the grant work that I'm working on, that students and I believe students receive at least more than half of all whole grains that they have is at school alone. So with that being said, I think that is another really big role in the food system that we have. And we're also working on transitioning back to scratch cooking. This is something that we're seeing across the country, and California again is a leader, but just working on really going back to the basics, making things in school kitchens, getting equipment to do this. And the better food you serve, the less waste that you'll have. And then focusing more on local procurement, right? Decreasing our food miles and where that food's coming from. And then of course, all of our farm to school and nutrition education. So food waste, does it occur at schools? Yes, we are a food service operation. There will always be food waste. It is inevitable, just like a hospital. We can't control what kids eat off their plate. This is a picture of a little kindergartner who got way too excited at the garden bar that day and took way more than his little eyes could, he just got so excited. And I talked to him, I said, that's awesome that you love all these fruits and vegetables, but there's no way in 20 minutes that you're going to eat an entire grapefruit, 3 bananas, and all these carrots. So let's talk about next time, maybe you could just take a smaller portion. And if you really want some more, you're always welcome to go back. So another thing is that if kids don't taste things, they often can toss it, right? So we want to try and really expose them to all these different foods that we serve. So really when you're building your menus, doing taste tests with student groups and getting their feedback, the more feedback you get, and then they see it on the menu, they get really excited. Kids are really keen to appearance, smell, and texture, just like adults. If the mac and cheese is really mushy and overcooked, don't serve it. Serve something else that day and work with your team and get that back together so that you guys can serve food that tastes good. Kids are really keen to, oh, this smells funky. This has a weird texture. I don't know what this looks like. And they really need to have time to taste it. Also working with younger students, you really build those skills earlier in life. And as they grow older, they're going to have more of a wider palate. Again, simply not good. So we really want to make sure that the food we're serving is good. Everything that I serve, I eat for lunch. I'm not going to serve anything that adults don't also want to participate in. Time to eat. I like to just mention this because, cafeterias are really loud. You're trying to serve a lot of kids in a short amount of time. Sometimes they get packed in like sardines, and it just doesn't lead to a very attractive and welcoming environment. This is something that I know as a student, everyone would like to have their space and like time and leisurely eat, and that just doesn't happen in schools. We're just not set up that way in our country. So just trying to do other things, putting posters up in the cafeteria, the bright lighting, colorful, everything you can do to kind of mitigate that. And then sizes of fruits and vegetables, how it's served, sliced oranges versus whole orange. If you put a whole orange, a big orange, navel orange on the salad bar, no one's going to eat it. It's going to get tossed because I can't even peel a whole orange. But if you slice it, you make it really appealing, the kids are going to eat it. And then lastly, just leftovers and overproduction. That goes on more of the management side about your forecasting and really making sure that you're making about just enough, which is always a struggle each day. You might be over a little bit under, and just for food safety reasons, you really just trying to get into that sweet spot, which takes some time. And then utilizing your leftovers the best you can. Maybe there's another way to use that cabbage or, different leftover, something that you could heat the next day. So this is the law that's going into effect. So right now, schools are working to prevent and reduce the generation of and recycle of organic food waste. And I believe in 2024, schools and large food service institutions and operations are going to be required to have a way to mitigate and recover the edible food. So the stakeholders in this, of course, is the food service staff. I think more importantly, it's the maintenance and custodial staff that really oversee it. Site administration and district administration really need to get on board on how to implement this. And then, of course, Cal Recycle and our local waste management. So this is just a photo. I just took some photos of what we currently do. I've been looking at different ways to do it, but basically the student has their plate there. They'll put their milk in that bucket to dump their leftover milk. Then all of their food scraps go into the green bin, and then their plate and their fork will go into the trash can. We currently don't have the means to compost right now in a garden. So all of the food scraps all go all together. I know a lot of schools can do at some sites, you might have like a green team where they do things for the worms and separate that, but this is how we do it right now. And it seems to work pretty well. So some of the challenges that you're gonna see and that we think about at schools alone are, for one, the bags can get heavy with the green waste, and this isn't ours, but this is just a photo I found. Also, when you think about recycling your green waste at home, we all have the small buckets and you're just dumping the bucket. You may not have a bag, but when you're doing this volume of kids coming through, you need a way to, you have to have a bag. So we use compostable liners, which are very expensive. However, you could use just a bag and have to dump it. So that's one way. That is kind of a challenge. And if the bags get heavy with more like liquid waste or like, pasta and stuff, the bags could rip. Increased workload for staff sometimes, just separating more bags, working with the kids. Student education and the reminders, it's always a challenge to consistently remind students to stop what they're doing, think about what's on their tray, how they're going to separate that, and then move through the line. They really sometimes just want to run out of the cafeteria and dump their tray and go to recess, but just working with them to really think about why that's important and why we do that step. And then I put this in there, recipe development, menu planning while still meeting nutritional guidelines, because I hear feedback sometimes where it's like, oh, students, nutritional guidelines are like, if we didn't have to meet those and we could just serve kids what they wanted, then we would have less waste. Well, maybe, but I'm a big advocate in that we still need to be meeting these nutritional guidelines and serving kids a really nutritious meal. That doesn't mean that it needs to be bad food or taste gross. It can be really delicious, but you need to work with your team and create recipes and network with other directors in the county to create great food that's also nutritious, meets those guidelines. So all of the directors, I would say, in all the school districts in SLO County are really work closely together to share best practices. I put this up there just for those that may not be familiar with the components of a school lunch. So we have the meat or meat alternate, your grain, your milk, your fruit, and your vegetable. So offer versus serve is one way that the state and USDA has mitigated food waste. So the students have to take 3 out of 5 of these components. So they need to take a half a fruit, a half a cup of a fruit or a vegetable or a combine, and 2 others. So if they took a pulled pork sandwich, they would have their meat alternate, their grain, and maybe they took orange slices, and they are never required to take a milk as long as you take 3 out of the 5. So some strategies to help mitigate food waste in schools are utilizing offer versus serve. This necessarily wasn't offered before I was here. Kids always had to take a milk. Well, if the students always have to take a milk, you're going to have a lot of milk that gets wasted. It's just inevitable. So really just having that as an option for them, telling them they need to take a half a cup of a vegetable or a fruit at the garden bar and having those out there. And then just letting them choose. Food share and food donation bin. So that's a picture of one that we have. So any items like whole fruit, milk that's unopened, maybe there's graham crackers or bags of carrots or a muffin that's wrapped, all of those can go into the share bin when they're done eating. And so kids throughout the day can come in and grab a snack or take it home. Utilizing the smarter lunchroom movement, this is just more strategies and best practices across the state and the country. Managing your inventory, so just making sure that we're managing first in, first out, we're watching those labels, we're not letting food go to waste that way. And then you can conduct plate waste studies, so really seeing what the kids like, how much they're tossing, and then from there you can kind of adjust your menu and decide or adjust your recipe. Some more strategies that we use are exposure. So again, just exposing kids, having them taste. The students that are at my district, a lot of them have a very limited palate, and that's not any fault in their own. It's just it's the community. San Miguel is a food desert. I like to say there's no grocery store other than the dollar store within, I think it's about 7 or 8 miles. So it just limits your variety that you're going to have. Taste, taste, taste. We do a lot of taste testings. We're actually going to taste local raisins and kumquats this week. We tasted raspberries with Claire over the summer with Bautista Farms. We did sugar snap peas, just really getting them involved, really showing them that fruits and vegetables can be delicious. We do love it, like it, not today. We try it. We have our seasonal produce guide from that Claire made on Farm to School. So the kids see this every day and really get excited about what is around. And then we work really, especially this year, started really focusing on what's in season. So in the fall, we will really go really heavy with all the strawberries and watermelon, cucumber, zucchini. And then in the winter right now, we're really heavy into citrus and greens. And then we'll go to the spring and fruit vegetables when those are in season. So that also gives them a way to get really excited. They know that they're not going to have grapes all year round. They know that grapes are going to come in the fall, and that's when they're available to them. And then lastly, just some more successes that we have had. I would say in large part our food share bin. Since I've been here, I implemented that, and this is my second year working here. That's been a real success. We have a lot of kiddos at this district that may not get anything else to eat when they go home. And so it's just, I feel like it's my job to make sure that we have food accessible to them, and anything I can do to prevent that from going in the trash. So kids always grab oranges. I've seen an increase in participation since when I've started working here, and we switched to a lot of scratch cooking. You see that even if it was all free before, but the food is good and it tastes good and kids get excited about coming to lunch every day, then you're going to see more kids who need to eat. It's just, it works. And then lastly, student and staff education, really doing those farm to school programs. You see our little preschooler and TK kids planting vegetables that we just harvested, some broccoli and lettuce. And then we also run a grant with CDFA, the farm to school grant, where we are growing wheat on our campuses, and the kids are harvesting that, and then we're milling it out at Shandon and making 100% whole grain products. So that's all I have for you. I just thought I would show a little bit about what we're doing as a school district to be a part of the food system, integrate that into all of our community and families here. And then I just wanted to say that there is enough food for everyone on this planet, but that doesn't mean that everyone has the ability to eat. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Lauren. So next up, we've got Andrea Richards, also known as Dre. She graduated from Portland State University in 2020 with a certificate in sustainability and an emphasis on waste management. And while she was at school out there, she volunteered weekly for a food rescue nonprofit and is thrilled to be able to continue this work on a professional level here on the Central Coast. Dre started at the Slow Food Bank in 2020 as an AmeriCorps Vista volunteer working to expand volunteer capacity, and she was fortunate to be offered a full-time position after her service year. She transitioned to the food rescue manager role in February of 2022, and she's here to talk more about the food rescue efforts of SLO Food Bank, community partners, and volunteers. And then I didn't mention this before, but we're going to do the Q&A at the end. So if you have questions, write them down, or you can throw them in the chat, and we'll just go through them at the end. So yeah, Dre, take it away.
Thank you for the introduction, Sarah. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can see my presentation here.
Hold on one second. I'm going to stop participant sharing, and then yours should be able to, there you go. Is everybody seeing the food bank slide?
Okay. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for having me, and thanks everybody for being here today to talk about food rescue. I am so excited about what I do here at the food bank, and I'm happy to share it with everybody because we've got good things going and more coming down the pipeline. So to talk just very brief overview of what we're doing at the food bank, there are two main programs that we use to rescue food. So we're doing grocery rescue, which is basically hooking up nonprofit agency partners of ours with local grocery stores and some restaurants right now to rescue food that's near date, that is no longer able to be sold, and bringing that back to their organizations to distribute to their participants. Grocery rescue is kept super local, so our agency partners in North County rescue from grocery stores in North County, and then they distribute to their participants that are right there in that same area. So that way we're able to have grocery rescue all around the county, but not be driving all around the county to make those connections. So by keeping it local, we help the environment there as well. And then we have Glean Slow, which is a produce rescue program. In a nutshell, we organize volunteers to meet up at local farms and in some backyards where people have produce on their trees that would have gone to waste. They pick this produce and then we bring it back to the SLO Food Bank, and it goes out through our Hunger Relief Network. You're going to hear me refer to our Hunger Relief Network quite a few times in this presentation, and I'm going to get into exactly what that is sort of at the end, but it's basically partnerships around the county that help us get food out to those in need. So before going into detail about what we're doing in California, or excuse me, in this county for food rescue, I want to go a little bit into the why. And Sarah did a great job of kind of giving some details about this, so I'm just going to briefly touch on it. But we're doing a lot of the food rescue because of this law 1383, which is meant to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So they're looking for a 75% reduction by the year 2025. The biggest part of that we're interested in and excited about at the food bank is the edible food recovery goals. So that's being implemented in the two different tier systems. Currently, grocery stores and supermarkets and wholesale food vendors are already mandated to donate food, and that's the tier 1. And then tier 2 is coming down the pipeline in 2024, where hotels, restaurants, schools, and healthcare facilities, large-scale cafeterias are going to be mandated to donate. So we're looking forward to more donations coming in the years to come. So the SLO Food Bank and agency partners were actually way ahead of the game when 1383 came to be. So some of our agency partners have actually been rescuing food since before we even started recording this. So today we have 24 nonprofit agency partners that are rescuing from 50 grocery stores roughly 50 grocery stores all around the county. And as I said, this has been going on for a long time. In 2016, the food bank saw that our agency partners were getting a good amount of food from Grocery Rescue and thought, okay, let's get involved in this, make it sort of a replicable program so we can invite more agency partners to take part in this. And then also so we can record what's going on and apply for grants and get more funding to sort of grow this program. So it's been something that we have been collecting data on and growing since 2016, and it's only growing with more tier 2 generators coming down the pipeline. So we coordinate with our agency partners that are interested in Grocery Rescue and hook them up with local grocery stores so they can rescue near date food, bring it back to their pantries. They sort and weigh the food, and then sometimes it goes out right away that day to their participants in meal programs or through their pantries. And sometimes it gets stored for a day or two and then goes out shortly thereafter. So there are 117 weekly pickups that happen through our agency partners throughout the entire county. To give you an idea, in 2022, our agency partners rescued over 1.2 million pounds of food that would have gone to the landfill and got it out through their distributions. The Slow Food Bank has their own version of food rescue as well, which is the same thing. We rescue food from our biggest account is with some local bakeries so that we can supplement bread at our neighborhood food distributions and different bread products. So the Slow Food Bank itself rescued over 54,000 pounds of food that would have gone to waste as well. And as I said, we're looking forward to more partnerships in 2024. So this graphic gives you an idea of what the 2 tiers are that are mandated to donate edible food through 1383. As I said, tier 1's happening. Tier 2, one of the partnerships that we're really looking forward to, we just got out of a meeting yesterday with a local school district to talk about where waste is happening at the schools and how we can connect our agency partners locally to schools. So, you know, as Lauren had mentioned, the forecasting is not always perfect and sometimes there's leftover food. So what we'd like to do when there's leftover food is have a network of agency partners available to give a call and say, hey, this is available. Come on down and pick it up either that day or the next day and get that food out to your participants and our neighbors in need. So that's one of our relationships that we're really looking forward to building as tier 2 comes down the pipeline. Excuse me. So the other food rescue program that we have is a produce rescue program. It's called Glean Slow. This has been, Glean Slow started in 2010. It was a grassroots movement by some local folks who saw that there was produce on trees in the neighborhood that was just going to waste. Shortly after they started in 2010, Glean Slow partnered with the Slow Food Bank to use their network to get the food that was being rescued out into the community. And this partnership grew to where we are today. Glean Slow is actually a program of the Slow Food Bank. And in a nutshell, we basically coordinate volunteers to meet at farms and in backyards, pick produce that would have gone to waste and get it back to the food bank to go out through our hunger relief network. So we have grown from having just our one hub in the warehouse here in San Luis Obispo to 2 hubs. We now have one in North County as well, which has equipment and a vehicle so that volunteers up in North County can do gleans up there and keep it local. So the produce that gets gleaned in North County actually goes out through our agency partners in North County. To give you an idea of the impact of this program, in 2022, we gleaned a total of a little over 315,000 pounds. So we are excited to see that continue to grow as well. There are a couple different ways that we do this gleaning process. So one of the biggest ones that we do are large gleans out at local farms and orchards. So these are coordinated by Sarah, our food rescue and glean coordinator. She goes out and meets with volunteers that are sometimes groups of like 8 to 15, can be up to groups of 30, and they harvest produce that would have gone to waste to bring it back to the food bank. Sometimes we get smaller donors reaching out and they just have like an orange tree in their front yard or a pear tree. Those are smaller gleans that we don't necessarily need to sort of get all our resources together and go on out there and meet a bunch of volunteers, but we can coordinate for smaller harvest leaders to go out and do those smaller gleans. These are volunteers in sort of an elevated capacity that can lead other volunteers and do those smaller backyard gleans around the county. We also have farmers market collections. So we have harvest leaders that meet at farmers market on a weekly basis and collect produce at the end of the market that would have gone to waste. We connect these markets with agency partners, and then it's able to, again, stay local, go directly to an agency partner, and then sometimes get distributed the next day. So that's another great produce rescue program that we have. And then lastly, we do neighborhood fruit drives. And this is a really exciting one for like high school kids that want to get involved in the food system. Maybe they need some community service hours for a program that they're doing. So what they can do is call us up. We coordinate a neighborhood fruit drive. Basically, they go around their neighborhood, look for people that have fruit on their trees, and put a little flyer out and say, hey, I'm collecting food for the food bank. I'm going to be coming around in a week. If you can harvest your fruit, have some friends over, you know, if you'd like to harvest your fruit and donate to the food bank, go ahead and put it out on your porch and we'll come by and pick it up next week and bring it to the food bank. So that's another really awesome way that we're able to involve you know, neighborhood high school children in the food system and get them helping with rescuing produce as well. So as I mentioned, we have what we call a hunger relief network that we use to get all of the food that we rescue out into the community. So we can't do it alone. We only have our, you know, we're one warehouse here in San Luis Obispo, and the whole county is sort of a sprawling area. So we have to have these connections that we utilize to help our impact sort of spread around the county. We have 65 nonprofit agency partners that have free pantries, prepared meal sites, and offer other community services. And as I had mentioned, 24 of these agency partners are currently doing grocery rescue. And there's 65 altogether that are sort of involved in hunger relief in some way. We also have direct neighborhood food distributions. Now, this is where we have a truck that is loaded up at the food bank with produce bags of fresh fruits and vegetables. Often gleaned produce will be in there as well. And then they have shelf-stable food as well. And they go out to different areas in the community and do neighborhood food distributions. There's 63 of these that happen on a monthly basis all around SLO County. So we go as far out as California Valley. We have 2 distributions actually in San Miguel as well. So we do hit up the entire county throughout the month to be sure that everybody's getting access. We also have children and seniors farmers markets. The picture you see here is Avalon. She's our nutrition services coordinator. She's setting up here for a children's farmers market. This is one of our most adorable programs. They print little fake money, and then the children get to come and play games and learn more about fruits and vegetables, and then they get to purchase them with the dollars that they have, and bring that fresh produce home to their families. We have something similar for seniors farmers markets. They don't get to play with the money, but it's the same thing. It's giving them access to fresh fruits and vegetables. And then we also have other food bank partners. So sometimes we'll have an abundance of, like the first thing that comes to mind last year, we had some gleans at Tally Farms where we were getting thousands of pounds of lemons a month, and there's too many lemons to get out through our neighborhood food distribution. So we called up the Santa Maria Food Bank. They were kind of low on citrus and they were into it. So the next time we brought a truck out there, we brought a couple, 1,000 pounds of lemons out to them. So that is all those different partnerships sort of make up our hunger relief network that help us to really broadcast our impact over the whole county from just this one hub here in San Luis Obispo. And to just give you an idea of the total impact of our food rescue programs, our gleans in 2022, it equaled over 315,000 pounds of food rescue. Our agency partners were able to get a little over 1.2 million pounds. And then the Slow Food Bank itself also rescued a little over 54,000 pounds. These numbers are all still being tallied for 2022. They're not the official numbers yet, just to let you know, but this is what we're looking at. And this is a pretty good ballpark right now. So altogether, we're looking at over 1.6 million pounds of food that was rescued, kept from the landfill, and distributed to neighbors in need across the county. So we are super proud of what we have been able to do so far, and we're really looking forward to expanding those partnerships and doing even more food rescue coming up in the future. So thanks everybody for being here and listening to what the Slow Food Bank is doing. And I look forward to questions towards the end.
Thank you, Dre. So last but not least, we've got Kathy Olofsson. She is the Director of Development for the Food Recovery Network, which is a national nonprofit that works to combat climate change and end hunger by recovering perishable surplus food from across the supply chain and then donating it to feed people experiencing hunger. After she graduated from Cal Poly in 2018 with a degree in sociology, she ventured off to the East Coast, where she joined the Food Recovery Network team in Washington, D.C. And now as the Director of Development, she oversees all fundraising efforts for the organization in support of nationwide student-led food recovery programming. Being a West Coast baby at heart, she recently moved back to the Central Coast, where she now lives, plays, and explores alongside her partner and puppy, while continuing to work remotely for the Food Recovery Network. She looks forward to learning more about the food recovery initiatives throughout SLO County. All right, Cassie, it's all you.
Thank you, Sarah. I will share my screen, and while I do that, I know we're absorbing lots of things in our brain, so feel free to take a stretch, a shoulder roll, whatever you need. I know that I needed that a little bit. Thanks so much for having me. Really excited to be sharing more about my organization with you all here today. I have been following along the Slow Food Coalition for a while, since I moved back about a year ago, but haven't been able to attend a meeting yet. So really excited to be here with you all and share more about the work that I do. My presentation will be much more nationally focused. Like Sarah mentioned, I work for a national organization, but definitely going to try to connect it back to SLO County as it makes sense. Sarah gave a great introduction, but just wanted to share a little bit more about me. Like she said, I had graduated from Cal Poly, moved out to DC area, and recently moved back just a little over a year ago. And I know Mary's on the call. I was a previous intern at EcoSlow and was introduced to the environmental things of SLOW through that. So shout out to Mary. And really just got introduced to a lot of things, sustainability and also social justice through my major. And upon moving to DC, started working with the Food Recovery Network team. So really grateful I can continue to work remotely. Also, we'll use any excuse to share a picture of my dog here. If you ever see us exploring on the beaches, feel free to say hi. And yeah, really excited to share more with you all today. So to introduce you to Food Recovery Network, and I know Sarah gave a great introduction as well, we are a national nonprofit that's committed to food recovery, the act of, as we know, recovering surplus food that then hunger fighting organizations can use it to feed people experiencing hunger. We do this primarily through working with college students, as I'll share in my presentation, but also other food businesses and farmers all across the food supply chain. At our core at Food Recovery Network, our end goal mission is to end hunger across the US. And we believe that no one should be hungry, and knowing that there's so much surplus food across the food supply chain, we can work to end this goal. But not only will, immediate food will solve the issue of hunger, there's so many interrelated issues and socioeconomic status and things like that. So we work at kind of both, like, well, how can we look at the immediate need for food and then also working to end hunger as an ultimate goal, and using a lot of different levers to pull to achieve that. I won't go too much into this, since I know our other panelists shared awesome stats about, the impact of food waste and food insecurity across the US. But I like this slide because it shows how intersectional this work is, and how not only is reducing food waste environmental solution, can combat climate change, also social and supporting communities experiencing hunger, and then of course financial as well, knowing that when you're wasting food, you're wasting the labor and the transportation costs and everything. And so when you add it up at a national level, these numbers are just massive and kind of hard to comprehend. But knowing that this really can show that there's an impact in reducing food waste. Something else I wanted to share, and imagine if some folks aren't super familiar with the food recovery movement, a lot of the questions that we get asked off the bat at Food Recovery Network from different food businesses or even our college students that we work with is the liability piece. Like, will I be held liable if I'm donating surplus food? And the answer is no. There was an act passed in 1996 that limits liability for food donors that are donating their surplus food in good faith, which basically means using basic food safety practices. And an exciting thing that just happened was President Biden officially signed the Food Donation Improvement Act into law. And this even further strengthened the Bill Emerson 1996 law that passed by adding more different criteria to it. So this was a cool initiative that our organization was a part of. A lot of our students across the US advocated for it, and we worked with other both national and local organizations to help pass this. And an interesting piece about this as well is that this expands, not only can you donate food to an organization, typically a 501c3, it also expanded it to individuals. So you can give food directly to a food insecure individual in your community, which wasn't in the Bill Emerson Act. I know some folks on the call were also talking about the date labels and how those can be so frustrating. And I've definitely heard that in so many conversations. And it's my understanding that with this act being passed, it'll now hopefully actually put more pressure onto the government to pass and share more guidelines around date labels and putting more specific criteria on it. Because anywhere from, being a part of a similar food coalition working group in DC, all the way through here, a lot of people talk about date labels and how there needs to be more explanations around them. So I wanted to share that as just someone that, yeah, might have a question of liability. This was a recent win for the food recovery movement. So Food Recovery Network, we started in 2011 at the University of Maryland, just north of DC, started by a group of students that had seen food going to waste at their dining halls, and then also had been volunteering with a local church that was serving people experiencing hunger up the road. And so these students put 2 and 2 together and coordinated with the dining service providers, say, okay, can we route this food to the community in need that's in our neighborhood? And to date, we've grown all across the US, now at nearly 200 chapters, and we are currently the largest student-led movement across, or fighting food waste across the US. So I know that Dre gave a good example of how food recovery works with the food bank, and I also wanted to share that how that works for us. So being the student-led movement that we are, we have chapters at colleges and universities, as I mentioned, and so college students are the ones really driving this program. So they will coordinate on their campuses with their dining providers or different restaurants on campus, and then also off campus as well. Some of our chapters have expanded to local farmers markets or grocery stores or local restaurants. And they will work with the dining managers and the chefs to say, okay, educate them about the liability pieces, educate them about what they know about food recovery, and say, okay, can we recover this surplus food? They'll also then coordinate with a local hunger fighting nonprofit partner. In some cases, this is a local food bank. This is also a lot of times a homeless shelter or women's domestic violence shelter or after school programs. There's a lot of different models that our chapters have across the country. Just basically a hunger fighting partner that can accept the food that they're donating. A lot of times coming from dining halls, this is prepared foods, but like I mentioned, they also work with farmers markets or different groups. So this also can be fresh produce and raw ingredients as well. And so the students coordinate these logistics, get trained in food safety by our organization and also sometimes their dining providers, and then they will then route this food to the hunger fighting nonprofit partner in their community that then feeds their community. I will also add, in the pandemic, particularly in the last few years, our students weren't always able to, gather in person and be able to safely recover the surplus food. So we also expanded what it means to be a Food Recovery Network chapter and included opportunities such as advocacy, like I mentioned, the Food Donation Improvement Act, and calling up their legislators to advocate for it, but also community involvement and volunteer services. So a lot of our students would volunteer with their local hunger fighting nonprofit partner, volunteer with their local food bank. And when it was safe to do so, to be able to continue to support their community, even if they weren't on campus and able to physically recover the food. A lot of our students also had to restart their food recovery programs as they returned back to campus. We saw so much turnover in the food service industry. And so really restarting, relationship building with the dining managers and the chefs, and being able to reform partnerships with nonprofits in their community once they came back onto campus. So here is a map of our chapters all across the US. We are actually getting a chapter started at Cal Poly, which is really exciting. This was a recent development. We're in touch with a student there, and she is getting some other volunteers and looking to get a faculty staff advisor. So if anyone on the call knows a Cal Poly student that you think might be interested in this, please reach out and connect them to me and share this with them. I know that student is excited to get more involved. And then also, if you know anyone, staff members or anything that might be interested, please connect them. Really excited to get that started. Another piece I won't go too much into, but since we're a national organization, we wanted to see, and really over the last 10 plus years have grown largely through word of mouth of students just looking to, engage their community, students looking to reduce food waste and fight climate change and really have an action. That was something that particularly attracted me to FRN, is like having a specific action to support your community. In the last couple of years, we as an organization looked at how do we want to focus our efforts. We've really grown largely organically over the last 10 years. How do we want to be specific in the communities that we grow in, particularly of the most need? And so we looked at data of food waste across the US, as well as food insecurity rates across the US, and then honed in on what specific states do we want to focus our efforts in. And then also, of course, looking at legislation. So California is one of our 10 target states that we selected, knowing that the SB 1383 and other legislation is really driving a lot of food recovery efforts. And then this year, we have a staff member that's focused in or has experience with GIS, and we're trying to drill that down even further, adding other data sets such as like health indicators, race ethnicity data, poverty and SNAP benefits, and adding a lot of layers to these maps and drilling down at a county specific level, knowing that there can be so much difference in need from one county to the next. So I also wanted to share a fun video of students in action. So let me share that now. This is a chapter based out of Georgia. This was a local news highlight, and I thought this was a cool way to show the impact of our chapters.
Students help to eliminate waste and feed the
Hear that
hungry.
okay?
Here's News Channel 6's Tiffany Hobbs.
Second-year Medical College of Georgia students Grace Coe and Michelle Lynn are co-presidents of a local chapter of the Food Recovery Network.
What we do is we rescue surplus food from the dining hall and deliver it to local community partner organizations all around the Augusta area to really target food insecurity, food waste, and reduce our environmental impact on campus.
Coe and Lynn previously did food recovery work at Emory University as undergraduates. They began brainstorming ideas for a local program in March.
For me personally, learning about the food insecurity here in Augusta was kind of like a driving kind of motivator for me to want to see if we could do something as students.
In Augusta, studies have shown that 1 in 8 adults and 1 in 4 children face food insecurity. Coe and Lynn say heightened food insecurity during the COVID-19 pandemic inspired them to continue the work they began.
Similarly, like that food insecurity program we ran at our undergrad was really monumental for me to grow as a leader, and I really wanted to kind of provide that same growth for other students to get involved.
After beginning recovery efforts in August, a team of more than 70 students have saved over 1,500 pounds of food, an estimated 1,200 meals, and 3,700 pounds of CO2 saved. Their efforts support Garden City Rescue Mission, Grace House of Augusta, Broken Outreach Ministries, and the Ronald McDonald House.
We really think it's crucial that we take care of the social determinants of health that go into determining a lot of the health outcomes we see in our community, and healthy food is just so crucial for those to keep our communities healthy.
To support this local chapter of the Food Network, visit us at WJBF.com for details. In Augusta, Tiffany Hobbs, WJBF, News Channel 6.
Great. So yeah, I thought that was pretty neat and a cool video that shows we also see students are interested in getting involved at all different levels. You know, some students might be interested in supporting their community. I actually know that one of these students I'd seen in another feature of this chapter had personally experienced food insecurity growing up. And so she wanted to be able to provide an action. You know, these in this case are medical students looking to become, you know, doctors and surgeons and things like that, and wanting to address the social determinants of health of their community. Some students are really engaged in climate change. And so it's really neat to be able to see students coming at these issues from all different ends. I know we're just running over time, so I'm just gonna skip through a couple just to quickly share. I mentioned yeah, we work all across the food supply chain, doing gleaning efforts as Dre had described. We also do that. On the left, we have a picture of our chapter in at Utah State that similarly does a residential gleaning program and will glean produce from folks' backyard trees and things like that, which is pretty neat. All the way from to large scale events and dining halls. The picture on the right is a picture of our executive director, my boss. We had recovered surplus food from a Super Bowl VIP tailgate party last year in LA. And we're actually doing that again this year in Arizona. And this is a picture of, you know, fresh crab legs from this super fancy VIP like celebrity chef tailgate that they had served that we were able to route to a food bank in LA, which is really neat, knowing that they may not always receive that type of food and quality of food. Here's some stats on our nationwide impact across the US over the past decade. Over 12 million pounds of food, which is really amazing. Lots of partners that make this work possible, as Dre had described as well, working with a lot of different hunger fighting nonprofits that really support this work across the US. And then here's just some opportunities for you to get involved and learn more. Like I said, you can support the Cal Poly chapter by connecting with folks. I saw something in the chat, so I'll be sure to check that out. And then if you don't have a chapter at your alma mater, we have a map on our website of a whole bunch of different chapters. You can tell a friend, sign up for our newsletter and other opportunities, and donate if you're able. There's lots of ways to get involved in this movement, not only just locally, as we have heard here today, but also nationally and advocating for it. So thank you all, and excited to chat soon.
Well, thank you for that, Kathy. And thanks for everyone who could stay on. I know we're running a little bit behind, but we can jump into our Q&A. If you have a question, just I don't know if you want to raise your Zoom hand or just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask. Yeah, Casey.
Well, first of all, thank you to all of the speakers. That was so informative and amazing. My question is for Lauren, actually, because I am super passionate about students. I used to be a Sunday school teacher, and we worked a little bit with food. And my first question is, we work a lot with Edible Slow magazine, who does a lot of really great kids education for local produce. And we work a little with One Full Earth about garden education. So like you kind of said, Lauren, what are some best ways to engage students creatively with fruits and vegetables so that they are more educated about the impact as they grow older? Because like you touched on, you know, these students are growing into adults that then inform future habits. So that's kind of my first thought.
Yeah, so you mentioned One Cool Earth, and I didn't mention that, but we use them at one of our garden sites, and then starting next year through some of our farm to school programming grants, One Cool Earth will be district wide for the next 2 years, which is really exciting. So that's another way that we engage them. We also do Harvest of the Month and nutrition education with public health. So that's something we've been able to do at Lillian Larson. And then other things like we recently are going to do with public health, they're going to do like what wellness means to me stickers that all the kids are going to do, and then post them up all over the cafeteria. Or we do a nutrition week once a year, which every day is a different color related to a different food group. And we'll have activities that the teachers can do with the students in the classroom. And then we'll also have different taste tests and events in the cafeteria as well. I don't know if that fully answered your question, but I think really it depends on the school district and what kind of passion that the stakeholders have in it. So at my district, it's something that I came in saying, you know, take this job. This is something I'm really passionate about and want to pursue. I know several other districts. Erin at San Luis Coastal was my mentor. She does a lot of this work. Jesse's up at Paso. So a lot of it, just if you can get the guys at the top, the administrators, the directors involved, then you can really pass that down. I think that's a good way to make sure it gets to everyone.
Thank you so much. I think that totally answered my question. And if you could share with me what was it, the week where every day it's like a different.
Oh yeah, we're gonna Leo, who I think is part of the coalition, him and Raina we're gonna do nutrition week, because March is National Nutrition Month.
Okay.
And I think this year's theme is Fuel the Future. And so I can share the information about that, what we're gonna do for it.
Yes, that'd be great, because we have a program called Co-op Explorers where kids 12 and under have free produce every day. We like coordinate a basket, and we primarily take from like ugly produce or like produce that went out for the kids, and they are like really excited. And every day we don't even have to ask, and the kids are like, can I have banana? I know there's an orange back there. Or they're like really excited. And like you mentioned, there are seasonal produce that comes in that they have no idea what it is. And it's a great educational moment, because they're like, what is that? And they're like interested in like a new color or a new shape. So I'll connect with you after this.
Sure. Meet the farmer activities. And then lastly, I just mentioned the food bank too. We do the children's farmers market once a month, and the kids really like that as well.
Thank you for that. Mary, I see your hands up.
Hi, yes, I had a question for Dre at the food bank. And also just wanted to say thank you everyone for the presentations. That was really fantastic. Dre, I was wondering with the food bank, if there's certain areas you're focused on that aren't meeting the needs of like your programs and things like that. If there's certain areas of the county, just knowing like the breadth of the county, if there's certain focus areas to expand work or establish work where it's not. Are there gaps, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, so we actually have a position that's grant funded that is dedicated specifically to looking into that question. It's our food equity manager. So she is doing a county-wide study to look at where there may be gaps in the services that we're providing, and see what we can do to work with our community partners to fill in those gaps. And it's not just sort of like spatially what we're seeing, like places in the county that aren't getting service, but also populations that may not be getting the access to food that they need because of different sort of barriers in, our social networks. So we're looking to see where we can sort of plug in or fill in those gaps. And we should be having the results from that study coming out a little later this year. And we're really looking forward to baking that into our strategic planning that's coming up later this year as well. So yes, it's on our radar.
Thank you.
It's a great question.
Yeah, I think the community just really, rallies around all these, the work the food bank does and all the organizations that are involved in the connectivity. And so how spread out this county is. So asked it more from a, how can the community help? So thank you. That answered my question. I'm looking forward to hearing about that at some point.
Dre, there's also a question in the chat. I can read it. It's from Janine.
Yeah.
When will the food bank relax their mandate to not allow their pantries to distribute food beyond for sale by date? So.
And maybe, Dre, I can hop in and ask that. I think our food procurement and food safety manager, Emily, had to hop off to a different meeting. But it is really complicated and it's pretty amazing. I think, Janine, as you referenced, that how healthy and safe food can be beyond the date. And so actually, because so many of our clients are seniors and children, which is very sad but true in our community and in many others. They trust and rely on us as well as our agency partners to provide that nutritious and safe food. Our clients are also people who have typically much less access to medical care. And so food safety is something we need to take really, really seriously, because and a bad day for maybe one of us on the call would be significantly different if it was experienced by one of our clients. And so we provide pretty clear guidance to all of our agency partners on how to maintain and transport the right temperatures for food, particularly with things around prepared food is incredibly important. To know that sort of chain of custody and chain of temperature that happens there is very important. We also want to make sure all of the food that we're rescuing and providing to clients is nutritious. And so within Andrea's team, we have a truly exceptional nutrition manager and coordinator that do a lot of the education, but also help develop nutrition guidelines to ensure that we're providing healthy food to our clients. We also make sure that there's guidance relating to sorting and sort of safety protocols for dented items where the packaging may be broken, where pathogens can come in. And then finally, we do utilize the USDA's recommendations for extended best by dates. And so I can probably find it, there's a link there, but really using that uniform guidance so that clients can continue that trust in our agency partners and what they can expect to provide from and receive from the food bank. But I was actually really excited to hear about Cassie's work and her organization to push that forward so that those standards can be better understood throughout the food chain. A lot of that liability, while it's not our main concern, is super important and is part of that partnership building. So I think I just went on and signed up for your organization's updates, and I'm going to be really excited to hear how that work goes moving forward.
Well, awesome. Any other questions for our panelists?
I actually did have a question. Dre, I'm curious of what your experience has been thus far with SB 1383, because at a nationwide level, we've seen like a lot of different experiences that folks have with legislation. And there's actually a previous student leader of ours that now lives in the Bay Area, and he was sharing his experience with me about SB 1383 and having some trouble with some food owners, you know, are really excited and jazzed and want to participate and are willing to participate and do what it takes. And some are like, you know, grinding their gears, like trying to get it and having limitations in funding, particularly for this work. And so I'm curious to see what your experience has been and with the food bank.
I think we're seeing there has been a little bit of heartache in the rolling out of it, especially it's changing systems on the donor side that weren't previously in action. So there's going to be some growing pains there. Luckily, as I kind of mentioned in my presentation, a lot of the grocery stores, in fact, the overwhelming majority of grocery stores in San Luis Obispo were already donating edible food prior to 1383. So we're not seeing a whole lot of changes that need to be implemented there. I think one of the biggest things that we're trying to sort of understand and come to an agreement on around the county is what the reporting procedures look like and stuff like that. So it's really sort of like on the infrastructure back end that we're seeing some growing pains. But like I said, the donation side of it was largely already in effect, and grocery stores were doing it just sort of because of their own corporate guidance, or because of the goodness of their hearts for a long time. So we're fortunate to have already had a lot of that infrastructure already in place. And with the tier 2 coming down the pipeline, we're really trying to get ahead of that and reach out to create those partnerships before the mandated donations start, so that we can help build that infrastructure on the front end so that we, don't have those headaches on the back end either. So I would say generally it's been a really positive experience in San Luis. And we're seeing some really good partnerships come out of it.
That's really great to hear. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
All right, thanks you all. This has been really informative. We really appreciate all of the speakers and participants that were here. Really excellent questions. I invite people to stay on. I know we've already gone over 15 minutes, but I'm just going to close out the meeting for now. Again, you can stay on if you have further questions and if our panelists want to stay on to answer them. Just letting you know that we are working with Slow Provisions in Mondays in March. More info in our newsletter coming up to support the Food System Coalition, and thanks to Slow Provisions for this opportunity to raise funds for us. And please remember to complete the survey at the end of when you log off. See you in March at Slow Provisions, and our next general meeting is May 9th. And also here's some contact information for those folks that wanted to get in contact with us about joining work groups. So thanks you all. Again, please stay on. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And again, if you have other questions and have time to stay with us, keep them coming. I think I have a question. Let's see. Dre still on? Does she have to leave? Oh, there you are. Thank you all. I've let you go really soon, but Dre, do you get store donations that are too big? I know this is your question, but I'm actually interested in it too. And are there? Yeah.
Yeah, there are times when the generators have like too much of one thing for the agency partner that's picking up that day to absorb and to be able to redistribute. One important factor of 1383 is that the food recovery organizations they're not the ones that are mandated to recover the food. We're just sort of like there to accept it, right? So there are no regulations that say that, or excuse me, let me say this. Food recovery organizations are allowed to reject food on the premise of it being out of their nutrition standards, inedible for any reason, or a quantity that's too large for them to redistribute. And what I do is make connections with our donors to let them know, hey, if you have too much of something that one of our agency partners can't pick up, call the food bank and let us know, because we might know somebody else in the area that would be able to use it. So I try to make connections when that happens to be sure that it doesn't go to waste. Surprisingly, it doesn't happen too often. Our agency partners are really well equipped to be able to handle what's coming their way, but every once in a while I need to sort of make some extra connections.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. I really appreciate your time. Please let us know if you have feedback on how things could have gone better for you as a panelist too. Sorry we went over, but I think we squeezed all your presentations in the right amount of time. So yeah, anything else, Sarah, that you want to add?
I don't think so. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was great to meet you all and chat more.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you, Lauren.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent work.
Bye.
Take care.